us all. Amen. Please be seated. Manningham City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land we now know as Manningham. We pay our respects to the Wurundjeri elders, past and present, and value the ongoing contribution to the cultural heritage of Manningham. I'd like to welcome all members of the public here tonight to this council meeting who've come along to observe our proceedings. I would like just to advise you that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice and or image is broadcast. Manningham Council would also like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. All council meetings are controlled by a meeting procedure local law. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda by calling it by number and by reading the title. I'll then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary items. I'd like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda, which is a public question time. This provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of the council. Questions must be registered prior to the commencement of the meeting to be asked. If we do not have the information at hand to provide a meaningful response, the question may be taken on notice and a response provided in writing. I would also stress that I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to council through the normal channels. Item 2 is apologies and request for leave of absence. There are no apologies. Item 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. There are no prior notifications of conflict of interest. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover? Councillor Galbally.
Yes, I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on 25th of September 2018 and the special meeting of council held on 9th of October 2018 be confirmed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Item 5, presentations. Well, there's a couple of things I'd like to share with people tonight. Firstly, this weekend there is a fireball being held, and the mayoral fireball will be held upstairs, and it's a great opportunity to support the CFA. And if you go to our website, you'll find the links and you'll be able to actually support it by bidding on various items on Gala Bid with 130 items to sell. And the more money we raise for the CFA volunteers, the better. So I encourage everyone to look into that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to advise councillors and the community of Remembrance Day, local events that are being scheduled for 11th of November. Templestowe RSL, Doncaster RSL and Warrandyte RSL are all hosting events, and councillors and community are invited to attend any of these. The Doncaster RSL service will be held at the corner of Leeds Street and Doncaster Road, Doncaster East at 10 a.m. The Templestowe RSL service will be held at Memorial Park, corner of Foot Street and High Streets in Templestowe at 10:30, and the Warrandyte service will be held in Yarra Street at 10:30 also. During the week leading up to Remembrance Day, there will be volunteers out selling poppies. I'd encourage you to purchase a poppy and wear it proudly in memory of those who have fallen in the line of duty protecting our country. And you'll notice that all the councillors are wearing a poppy tonight that's been kindly crocheted by members of the public.
Many women.
Thanks, Councillor Haynes. And they'll be on display at those services. I'd also just like to acknowledge that our thoughts and prayers are with ex-mayor Jim Grievous Kostopoulos and his family on a tragic loss in their family. Item 6, petitions. 6.1, petition request for no trees on nature strip in Crouch Street, Doncaster, Coonung Ward. Do I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Haynes.
Mr Mayor, I requested the petition with 11 resident signatories request that council not to plant trees on their nature strips in Crouch Court, Doncaster be received and referred through to the appropriate officer for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Public question time, item 7. We have received a question from Dr. Marie Tarabay. Dr. Tarabay, would you like to come forward to the microphone, please? Good evening. You'll have 2 minutes to give an introductory statement and then you can proceed with your question.
Okay, I'm a long-term resident here since 1978. I've grown up here and I've seen some massive changes since then. It's affected the change of the environment has affected myself and others in Manningham. I'll ask the question. I'm asking what can be done in Manningham City to stop the developers from moonscaping the environment and the residents or arborists from destroying or removing the native vegetation. I know this is happening because being part of this community, I can see the change at a very micro level. And there's a lot of things that get passed. If you don't live here, then and over a long period of time, you may miss really important things like the decrease in frequency of bird life, various other reptile life. The significant tree list is virtually, my judgment, is virtually useless. If you can afford to pay $1 million plus for a unit, you certainly can afford to pay the fine of $1,000. And I've seen lots of very important gum trees be reduced, and as a result, the bird life has decreased. And the birds are getting, unfortunately, they're becoming a nuisance in some places. So it's affected me psychologically because the markers that trigger my memories, and people went to school here like I did, it does affect you. You don't feel this attachment. You feel that you're losing your memories. You're losing part of your childhood. And what legacy are we leaving my own children? I've got 3 children I've raised here. So it's important. I don't feel the balance of the city at the moment. There is that balance. It's time to address. We are losing a lot of our life, our wildlife. Just one more thing I want to add. The research shows that if we don't do something significant now, we will lose, it says it would disappear. The bushland, the entire network of the bushland in Manningham would disappear before the end of the century. 2/3 of the indigenous flora here is on the endangered or critically endangered list now. So it's up to you. We have to do something before the concrete jungle takes over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tarabay. If you just take your seat and I'll ask the Group Manager for Approvals and Compliance to respond. Thank you, Niall.
Thank you, Mayor Conlon, through the Chair. Planning policies for Manningham at both state and local level seek to both maintain and enhance the green character throughout the municipality whilst directing development and change to key locations in addressing the ongoing needs of the community. This is undertaken by applying a suite of planning controls that seek to conserve significant landscape as well as habitat. These controls include the significant landscape overlay, the environmental significance overlay, and the vegetation protection overlay. In applying these controls, it's important to achieve a balance between the objectives of these controls as well as protecting life in the event of bushfire. Through most parts of the municipality, vegetation exemptions apply at the state level that enable vegetation to be removed without the need for a planning permit. Council certainly enforces the planning scheme actively and implements a strategy that is both proactive and reactive in nature. Should the community be concerned that vegetation is being removed unlawfully, residents are encouraged to contact officers so the matter can be investigated and the appropriate action taken.
Thank you, Niall.
Mr Mayor, I've got a question. if I may.
Okay, Councillor McLeish, thank you.
Mr Mayor, if for example we as a council wanted to fine a developer for removing a protected tree or a significant tree on a property, are we able to, for example, as a council, implement our own fine of $20,000 or $100,000 for doing so? Do we have enough policy control to implement that on our own right?
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. I'll ask the Group Manager for Approvals and Compliance to respond.
Thank you for the question. No, Council doesn't have the discretion in terms of the fees that would be applicable in the event that there is a guilty finding of a significant vegetation, or indeed if a planning infringement was issued. There are a number of different ways to address the unlawful removal of vegetation, and depending on the significance of it, it may well include pursuing a prosecution or approaching the matter at the tribunal, or indeed issuing an infringement straight up.
So who does control the level of fines?
The state government.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Councillor Galbally.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. A bit more on the same line as what Councillor McLeish was talking about, but I was thinking more on, it's just that I've actually witnessed it in my own environment, which is in Mullum Ward, where someone has bought a 1 acre lot and basically moonscaped it on a weekend. And so that when we can prove that a land has been moonscaped illegally, what sort of recourse and what action can council take, and what will council take legally?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, the suite of options available include prosecution if the matter is significant, the vegetation that was removed is significant, not only in terms of visual appearance but also habitat value. Alternatively, the officers can approach and go through the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal and seek that revegetation occur. It depends on on what is to be achieved. That dictates the course of action that's to be taken, whether it's punitive or if we're looking at addressing the issue.
And sorry, this is the last question. Historically, do you know if we've actually done anything like that? Have we taken any of these?
I would have to take that on notice, but I believe we have
follow that up.
exercised a number of options, but I'll take that on notice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Niall. And thank you again, Dr. Tarabay. Item 8, admission of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Actually, before I do that, was there any more questions? Item 9, planning permit applications. 9.1, planning application PL 16/026495 at 92 to 96 Williamsons Road, Doncaster, for the construction of a 4-storey apartment building plus associated basement car parking and altered access to a road in a road zone category 1. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Haynes.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I stand to ask the councillors to support the decision that is within the report, I've made this difficult decision based on all the information that I've received, including the recent email that I got from regarding the traffic and the traffic engineers and our council's assessment of that. And I ask that all the other councillors support this decision based on the planning scheme. As you will read through the recommendation, there are a number of different points that are made with roadways for the widening of the service road to match the existing pavement, and a number of other issues that have been brought up during consultation and submitters meetings, including overlooking, and I know that this is definitely a very substantial change for this area, and there is already one just as substantial approved 2 doors down, and substantial changes. These planning scheme rules were put in place with the Doncaster Hill strategy and also the main roads back from 2002. And I know, and we all know around this table, that the council's decisions are often, and when it comes to planning, are always made regarding the planning scheme. And the planning scheme has been put in place and is in this area designated for that substantial change. So as a resident myself for over 25 years, I'm also seeing the changes to be quite detrimental to many people, including myself. But based as being a councillor and well-informed decision, I ask that the councillors support the officer's recommendation with all of the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Councillor Piccinini?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At the submitters meeting regarding this application last week, one of the real concerns was a lack of a traffic gap analysis report. It was with respect to can the service road, can Williamson's Road and the service road accommodate cars leaving the Williamson's Road and leaving the service road onto Williamson's Road at peak hours in the mornings and in the afternoons. It is a significant increase in population on that strip, because this development is for 79 units. So there will be more cars coming in and out and using the service road and turning onto Williamson's Road. But this afternoon, the developer and applicant provided the traffic gap analysis, and a copy was provided to the residents. And the report provides that the service road and Williamson's Road can accommodate significant increase in traffic leaving the service road, turning onto Williamson's Road, and also turning from Williamson's Road into the service road. The trips will increase from 1 or 2 in peak hour to approximately 53 in peak hour in the morning and in the afternoon. But the report provides that that road actually has capacity for 551 vehicles in the morning at peak hour and 648 vehicles in the evening in peak hours. So I submit that the council should be satisfied that that service road can accommodate the increased use of traffic use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Piccinini. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Chen?
And Mr. Mayor, I heard my fellow councillors' support of the application. I have no objection of what they said, but I do have some objection because my fellow councillors mentioned about the Manningham planning scheme. That is very fine. So my argument will go back to the Manningham planning scheme. And the planning scheme overlay that prescribed clearly about the maximum height of 11 meters. And if we just look at the definition of maximum, that means as great, high, and intense as possible and permitted. So we are expecting 11 meters as maximum, no more. And you can be less, of course, in terms of the definition of the dictionary. Now we have the more than 11 meters. We have 13.5 meters across for some area of the development. And also they mentioned about, yes, the apartment size of development, yes, I have no objection to it, but 3 stories. And now when we look at that development, they have 4 stories, and they exceed the maximum heights. For that reasons, I am able to support this application based on the current Manningham planning scheme. And I also has reservation about the planning scheme, the overlay, DD08, that gives consideration of the future development of the neighborhood area. And now we have already, my fellow councillors mentioned about the 100 and 101 that has been issued a permit, that's fine. And now we are going to have another one, that is current one, 92 to 96, that we are going to consider. And it's very possible that we are going to issue a permit if other councillors so support the application. But what about the 98? That is the only one that left across that land, across that street. That is the only one, the dwelling that hasn't have any chance for further development. So for those 2 reasons, under the current planning scheme rules, I am afraid that I cannot support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Are there any speakers for the motion? Councillor McLeish.
I have a question first, Mr Mayor, if I may. Can the officers tell me, is this main road precinct or sub-precinct A?
Through the chair and the main road precinct.
Right, so this is am I correct to think that this is a preferred height, not a mandatory height for this precinct?
That's right. Council has discretion to consider a height in excess of 11 metres.
Well, Mr Mayor, in the end, a preferred height is not mandatory. We all know the way the planning scheme is read. We know the way the planning scheme is read by the organisation and the way the planning scheme is read at VCAT. Preferred is not mandatory. This application complies with the planning scheme. Yes, in sections, in parts of the building it is 13.2 metres, I think the report says, but that's towards the centre of the building, it's not at the perimeter of the building. If you stand on the footpath, you stand on the road, you're standing in the neighbouring properties, it will present in accordance with the planning scheme based on the slope on the property. I cannot in all good conscience see us refuse an application in this location, send it to VCAT, spend an inordinate amount of taxpayers' money defending the indefensible. The reality is the scheme says this is compliant and we should be therefore passing it as is. So I ask my fellow councillors to support the recommendation from the officers. I would also point out that in implementing the DD08 amendment to the planning scheme, significant areas of the immediately adjoining back streets in Bulleen were substantially protected. Controls were put in place on the back streets in Bulleen as a trade-off for increasing heights and increasing density along the main roads, including Manningham Road and including this specific intersection. We as a council are required by the state government to have a strategy in the planning scheme which provides for increased density. It is mandatory, it's not optional. So in order for this council to get protection for the back streets, to stop apartment buildings being built in the back streets, a council 6 years ago, 7 years ago, began a process to get that protection. They were successful, DD08 is the result, and that is put the increased density and increased heights along our main roads where the public transport is and where the amenity is the poorest. That is a logical and sensible implementation of a planning scheme that could be got past the government, because in the end, this is the state planning scheme for Manningham. We don't control it. Any change we make must be signed off and approved by the department and the planning minister. So it has to be a negotiated outcome. That's what DD08 was. And this application complies with the DD08 amendment, and I ask my fellow councillors to therefore support it. We cannot defend this at VCAT. We will lose.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Any further speakers? Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos.
Mr Mayor, I can understand that this application complies with the with Manningham Planning Scheme, which is part of our requirements under the state planning scheme. I understand all this. One thing that worries me, and I need to express it, whilst I understand that this is an application that is likely to be approved, I think it is important for us to consider the implications of the rapid growth in the areas that we identified for growing is having on people, particularly when you have a neighbour with a family of 2 or 3 or 4, and all of a sudden you find yourself having to deal with 200 people next to you. The implications of such a rapid growth are immense for the welfare, for the well-being, for the amenity of the place, for congestion, parking, and all that goes along with growth. The fact that the state government and other governments are looking at population and the implications of that population should make this council much more willing to advocate for controlling a little bit that growth. I accept that Melbourne is growing. There's nothing anyone can do about it, and we need to accommodate it. Manningham has to play its role in this regard. However, let us be a little bit sensitive about the implications of that growth, because we will regret it. It'll be too late. We will create a place that is unlivable. For such a huge land, one would expect that every single box would be ticked. Unfortunately, there are elements that the officers have indicated that they're partly met. They're not met completely. For instance, the setbacks. Whilst most of the setbacks are complied by, there are three apartments which do not comply. For instance, apartment 305 on the 4th story is set back 7.15 metres when the requirement is 8.9 metres. Quite a departure. So I don't know why we could not insist that everything has to be satisfied given the other adverse implications. There's also something about the B17 in relation to the side backs, and I hope that this becomes a requirement. Look, I'll stop at this. I accept that Manningham needs to grow, but let us advocate to the government so that that growth is a little bit better controlled and better managed, so that we do not end up with a city which is not a good place to live.
Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I rise to support this particular application that has come before us today. It's interesting to note that what has been said has been in against this particular thing. One comment just sprung out to me. Yes, this does meet the Manningham planning scheme. And you know, we're at council, and if an application comes in and meets our planning schemes, then how, in all conscience, can we vote against it? What we have to do is change the Manningham planning scheme. But having said that, this planning scheme was brought through quite a number of years ago, and the DD08s are areas that were designated, and we've designated the areas of change, not the same. We've actually gone out, and it's been out in the community for quite a period of time, since the Doncaster Hill strategy, and all of this is around the 2002, 2003, and we had to say where we're going to cater for it. Now, before that, councillors, any block of land in Manningham, if it got over 2,400 or whatever square metre, or 2,100 square metres, there were no height limits. There was no development limits. It was just a judgment on how it fitted in the area, and it could be made up. We said no. We don't want that to occur. We don't want the 6-pack or 8-pack or 12-pack development that you see in Hawthorn blocks, or Camberwell blocks. You drive down a street, you see a large block of land, and then see a square block of flats. We didn't want that. And so therefore, we put a limit onto all of those areas. Look, don't quote me on the actual figures. I think it was 97% of Manningham is protected and 3 or 4% come out in the areas that we designated for higher development. And that was around shopping centres and on main roads. And indeed, this particular development is around our major shopping centre and on a main road. And indeed, you know, the height isn't the issue really because it can't be seen from many areas. And it tapers down to another size below, so it's unseen from that area. But these are the areas we've said are going to change. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be a unit development or a small townhouse development. It's an area that we've said we want that major change because the amenity of living on a main road and these areas isn't that great, and that's the area we've put it in. In return, we protected all those other areas around. And I even think in behind this block, if I'm correct, and please nod just, there is a DDO area as well, a sub-precinct. So again, and now what's intrinsic, Mr Mayor, is that once that zone has been applied and that overlay is put on to that title, there's an intrinsic right to be able to fulfil what we're saying. We've said to people, if you're in a DDO8, we want you to do this. And when we get something in that complies, then we need to be able to, we have to say pretty well yes in many ways, because otherwise we're picking winners and losers ad hoc across the board. And that's not what council's about. Now, I believe that we really need to look at our policy and work out ways in which some impacts of higher development can be abated into the future. But the fact is that the story of concentrating it there, rather than the open slather of down through back streets, all of a sudden having blocks of units and blocks of flats, that's what we've ruled out, and we've said this is where it's going. And I haven't found anyone come up with a better design than that, because all of Melbourne is going to need to take care of an increased population. And indeed, in comparison to our local neighbours, we are very small scale rather than large. So, councillors, I think we need, for our legitimacy, to actually approve this.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Are there any further speakers?
Against?
Just any further speakers? Councillor Haynes, you'll have a chance to wrap up. I think that's it. So, Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, fellow councillors. Interesting how my fellow councillors have said a small percentage of our council and municipality is designated for this rapid growth. Well, I wish it wasn't my area, and we all wish it wasn't our backyard. And that's what we do. But that's the world we're living in here in Manningham, and it's happening all over the state. I heard a statement from another fellow councillor saying that Manningham needs to grow. Well, if I had my way, we'd have no further population here in Manningham, but we don't really get a say in that, councillors. So it is growing, and there has been a small percentage that this is happening with. And Adele Court, which is at the rear of this, that my fellow councillor mentioned, I feel, because they've also got other ones either side of them also happening. I've heard statements recently that we're a money-hungry council. Well, again, I don't believe development's about being money-hungry, and I don't believe this council is in need of any extra money. So, councillors...
Get any extra money.
Exactly. But, you know, I know that this rapid growth is giving us all implications of amenity that are detrimental to us, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm very concerned about people's well-being. But that isn't what I'm here to discuss tonight on this. Other issues of our council, people's well-being, I will be discussing. But this is just on a planning application, councillors. And based on the report in front of you, I hope that we can make common sense prevail.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. There being no further debates or questions, I will put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Division. The motion is carried nationally and will stand. Please, those in favour. We have Councillor Kleinert, Councillor Goff, Councillor Haynes, Councillor McLeish, Councillor Piccinini, Councillor Galbally, Councillor Conlon in favour. Those against? Councillor Zafiropoulos and Councillor Chen. Thank you. Item 9.2, planning application PL 170274003 and VCAT proceeding P 816/0118 at Stockland, The Pines, 181 Reynolds Road, Doncaster East, for the use and development of a retirement village with associated resident and retail parking and altered access to a road zone category 1. So, do I have a mover for a motion, the alternate motion, or the Councillor McLeish?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move that Council adopt the officer's recommendation outlined in the report with the addition of the following new condition under the heading Design and Layout. 1.10, a review of the finished floor levels and or layout of the community use tenancies to explore the potential for an internal connection if compatible uses are identified and leases agreed prior to the submission of drawings for endorsement, and subsequent conditions be renumbered accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Galbally. Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, when this application first came before us, I moved against it. I spoke against it. I wasn't happy with the proposal that had come before us. There were many creditable aspects of the proposition, but there were some very poor ones. And the outcomes for our community were not good. I'm pleased to be able to stand here tonight and say that after our organisation has been in a compulsory mediation with the applicant Stockland, they have been able to negotiate a very good balanced outcome for this proposal. There have been quite a number of changes to the proposal. There's been an increase in parking, about 9, nearly 10% increase in parking for the proposition. That's a good thing, given this is going to be built right in the middle of a shopping centre, and increasing the public parking will be great. They've improved the internal roadways, so the roadways actually work quite well, and that the apartment roadways and the shopping centre roadways are actually quite separate. The circulation's going to work a lot better. There's new turning lanes been added. A range of different things in terms of traffic have improved. There are some things I would have preferred, but the things I would have preferred would have meant digging a hole much deeper into the ground and a lot more expense. And that's not been delivered, but you can't get everything in this world. You've got to take what you can get. And the thing that we do get, Mr Mayor, is that out of the 280 proposed apartments now in this 4-tower development, above the car park at the Pine Shopping Centre, so we're not talking right on residential streets here, we're talking above the car park of a shopping centre, we're going to see 280 apartments, the bulk of which will be for an aged care facility. Some of them will be standard residential apartments. But what we are going to see, Mr Mayor, is we're going to now see a new initiative from Stockland, 5%. 5% of the apartments allocated to affordable housing, Mr Mayor. That'll be 14 units of affordable housing built in this complex. And that's what these negotiations with the developer Stockland have delivered. And it's a great credit to them what they're delivering in this. This is a multi-million-dollar commitment to affordable housing in our community at a prime activity centre, where people with many disabilities are going to be able, hopefully people with disabilities, are going to be able to be housed in this accommodation, that we're going to see supported living complex developed in this location to support those members of our community who find housing unaffordable and a challenge. Having well-located housing at a shopping centre where there is public transport, where there is employment, near some of our great sporting facilities, near Mullum Mullum Stadium, Mullum Mullum Reserve and the many other sporting facilities in that location, near NEMDA, one of the great organisations in our community. I think this is a fabulous outcome for our community, which goes to show what we as a council can achieve, and most specifically what the great work of the officers of our organisation can achieve when we work together with a developer who has a mind to deliver something for our community. There are a few milestones when, as a councillor, you're pleased with many of the things you're able to achieve in a community, but you always have a few milestones that you hang your hat on. Well, this is one, Mr. Mayor. For me, 6 years. It's great.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Councillor Galbally?
Yeah, I think the best thing of this application, always have been excited about the prospect of the growth and providing some aged housing. But the 5% for affordable housing that our officers have managed to sort of arrange with the developer, I think is such a good plus. And considering the fact that what they're actually building on is a car park, and an eyesore of a car park. So it's going to actually bring more activity into the area. It's going to be more pleasant to the eye, and what it's doing, it's actually providing accommodation for our changing demographics in Manningham, especially our age population. And with the growth of loneliness, and it's been tagged as one of the biggest diseases of into the future, and I think presently, and it creates mental health problems as well. Loneliness actually is a real killer for anyone, but more people when they feel whether it's an aged population, that they lose the inclusivity, and they lose the sort of push to sort of get part of their community. And when they're living in it, when they're in their community environment, it's just going to make it so much easier. So all up, I think I'm really grateful that our officers have managed to bring this to a reasonable and, to me, a very positive conclusion. So I hope for everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galbally. Are there any speakers against the motion? There being no further...
No, not against. Can I just speak a few words about this proposal?
Thank you, Councillor Chen.
And Mr. Mayor, I attended an infrastructure forum last week, and the affordable housing topic was touched upon. And that one of the panelists said that, well, some councils are doing better than others. And I told the panelists that Manningham City Council is one of the better councils. And I give him examples, and we have the policy, we have the action plan. And we all know that in Victoria, affordable housing is through local councils by the voluntary negotiation, to negotiate contribution from the developers. And so I think that it is a great thing. They also prove that the council is try his very best to get a very good outcome in terms of affordable housing, and I really think that that demonstrates again what our commitment is in terms of affordable housing. And I really thank you, our planning officers, and do their very best to have a good outcome for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. There'd be no further questions or debate. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 10, City Planning and Community. 10.1, Warrandyte RSL request for community grant. Do I have a mover? Councillor Galbally?
I move that the motion be accepted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLeish? Councillor Galbally, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Warrandyte RSL have been there for a very long time, and recently they've been told that their balcony or their deck is unsafe. And leading up to the 100-year 11th of November commemoration, they are really up against it to try and get the works done before the day's here. Bendigo Bank have offered a contribution of $12,500, and they really do need some extra funding. So RSL have come to council for $25,000 grant, which we do have under our, we can sort of provide that under our grants program monies, although it doesn't actually fall completely under their guidelines. But considering that it is a community venue, although it's not council owned, the RSL have provided activities and respite for many years for returned servicemen and women. They actually, I know this for a fact, that they actually do a lot of events where local band members, just local community will come play at the RSL and for free, and it's like just a community event for anyone to come and attend. So they are very good at creating a centre for the community to go to. They don't have to book, they don't have to pay to enter. So it's, as far as council sort of offering and being able to give this one, it's a once only grant money. So I think that they deserve it and I'd like your support for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galbally. Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, as a councillor, it's been a privilege to see the commitment Manningham Council makes to supporting the RSL in our community. Over 6 years, I've seen every mayor and every councillor ensure that we provide the support we're needed to the RSL clubs in our community. It's been an ongoing relationship between all of the clubs in our community. Many individual councillors work with their local RSL in lots of ways. There are quite a number of people around this table. In fact, everyone does in their own way. So I'm pleased to be able to see this come forward and support the RSL in Warrandyte as we have the other clubs in our community. And I thank the organisation for bringing it forward and assisting this club.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Any speakers against? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Item 10.2, re-inspection fees for registered food businesses. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We all know that the food business has an obligation to comply with the relevant legislation requirements and food safety standards. But there may be non-compliant food business in our municipality, and that will incur costs to council for repeat inspections. And the Victorian Food Act gives council the authority to charge repeat inspection fees. And based on the council's data, the fees is calculated as $114.43 for repeat non-compliance. And the fee can be introduced from the 1st of January next year for as part of the registration period and will be reviewed annually. And by introducing the re-inspection fee, it could offset costs incurred by council for repeat inspections. It may also reduce the number of follow-up inspections and improve the food safety practices in our community. So for that reason, I ask my fellow councillors' support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Piccinini.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Any speakers against the motion? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously again. Thank you. Item 11, City Services, 11.1, Draft Manningham Parking Management Policy 2018. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Kleinert, thank you. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Mr. Mayor, Council recently completed the public consultation process for the parking management policy review. And the draft policy is just to seek a balanced approach and to meet the competing parking demands in our municipality. And I'm pleased that the community generally supports the draft policy. And of course, council also needs to consider feedbacks from the community. And for example, the draft policy authorizes all officers to investigate the adequacy of so-called Disability Discrimination Act parking bay at key locations. And council also will investigate commuter parkings in our municipality, and also in terms of policy review, the review period will extend from 3 years to 4 years, in line with the council election cycle. And there are other changes proposed in response to feedback that I don't need to just go on, and that can be read in page 214 of the agenda. And I have to point out that some issues such as enforcement, planning, and site-specific issues are not really planning management policy, and have been referred to the responsible department for further investigation. And all site-specific review issues will be investigated and report back to the submitters. And I also asked and requested all councillors be notified with the investigation reports if they are available. And so I ask my fellow councillors' support for the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Clark? Thank you, Ed. Any speakers against? I will put that motion. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Again. 11.2, Roads Benchmarking Survey, April 2018. Do I have a mover? Councillor Zafiropoulos.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. Councillor Zafiropoulos, would you like to speak to the motion?
Mr Mayor, this council early last year set a vision for the municipality and for ourselves to excel in as many ways as possible in relation to our operations. To do that, we adopted a continuous improvement approach to everything we do. And already we have seen positive results of that particular vision, because a number of our processes have improved. We're getting better feedback from the community, which needs to be worked on even more. And we also received a number of recognitions and awards from this sector about some of the things we are doing. So one such process that we've been doing for some years now, since 1999, is the roads infrastructure benchmarking, which we are doing with 5 other councils. We're basically comparing the way we maintain our roads with 5 neighbouring municipalities, Whitehorse, Monash, Maroondah, Knox and Banyule. And we're doing this because we feel that whilst this might seem petty for insignificant, a lot of residents, not only here, but in a lot of parts of local governments, do complain about pits and potholes and signs and all the things that make a municipality look untidy. Well, the results of this survey, which by the way is very inexpensive, it takes only 1 day for a car to go around and do the evaluation, another day to put the report. It shows that Manningham is really excelling in this regard. So here's another indicator that we're performing well. So I commend it to the councils, and I congratulate the officers for continuing to do this.
Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos. Councillor Piccinini.
Nothing further.
Are there any speakers against? No questions, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? And carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11.3, police loan vehicle. Do I have a mover?
Move as on the paper, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Goff. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I rise that council actually support this motion. This motion is actually about continuing our contract with the police for another year. As you can read through the report, with the age of the car and the kilometres it's done, it will last another year, and at the end of this particular year, we will make a decision on whether we continue that. I know that there are a lot of people that sort of say we're cross-subsidising state government and paying things for the police. I understand that argument, but I also understand that at Manningham traditionally we have had a very, very good and close relationship with our local police and the police stations. And indeed our work together is much more emphasised by our need of cooperation with emergency services and other things with regard to bushfire and a whole lot of other issues that come through here. And this vehicle actually does enable officers to get out to places that they would otherwise have transportation to get to and to work in cooperation with. That's a consideration we need to probably take into the future, but this particular one-year extension, we've got the vehicle and it's there and it's still going to be used, and I think it makes sense to actually continue it on for this year.
Thank you, councillor Goff. Councillor Galbally.
Yes, I would just like to say yes, please support this. It's just basically an extension till 12th of December 2019 of what's in place now, and it is something that it's a union between council and our local police that works well for council and our residents. We do ask for sort of extra patrolling and whatever they can, and they do. The police do sort of support us with our youth mental health and family violence working groups. So I just ask for your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Galbally. Any speakers against? There are no more questions. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, and carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12, shared services. There are no reports. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, Annual Report 2017-2018. We have a mover. Councillor
Moved as on the paper, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Kleinert. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I think this is about we were talking about it earlier, about the fourth time we've actually come to the chamber with this particular report in various parts of its process through what we legally need to do, and we're at the last stage of this financial year's reporting, because we've sent it off to the minister's signed, it's back us now, it's been out in public consultation, and this is the final document that we're putting out there, and it's read by everybody, and that is our form. This is our formal document for the annual report of the year. There are. I don't want to go through all the things that we've done because we've done a lot in Manningham, but I do want to actually highlight a couple of things that are really important and I think are important to people. Besides our population growing only a little bit, we're 124 or something thousand, 1,060 babies, that's a pretty good thing born into here for our infant welfare services to use. There's probably a lot more as people move around and come into our area. But, it's nearly $40 million of capital works was put onto the ground here in Manningham. And that's a great amount of money being spent back into the community to improve our services. And in particular, I just want to draw attention to some essential things in our area. And basically, I think it was 167,450 square metres of road resurfacing. And ask anyone that lives in Lower Templestowe or Bulleen and the stuff that's going around there now, how they're feeling about their roads being those local roads that were in great deterioration, being sort of developed and sort of brought up to a standard with the resurfacing of the area. And by no means is this a cheaper resurfacing like the stone seal, like you drive a truck along with wet tar and then you drive another truck along and then you get a roller going behind it and all of those stones. And if you've ever gone to the streets where you've got all of those little sharp stones, that's the cheap way of just resurfacing around. Or the slurry seal that we used a number of years ago that didn't actually live up to what we were trying to do. And that slurry seal didn't work as well. So this is a situation where we've gone the expensive way to actually redo these roads by actually getting a machine that rips up, grates off the top little layer, the top couple of centimetres of the road, and then lays it with new bitumen rolled up. And if you drive down any of those streets, the people that live in those streets are really, really happy about the new look of their street, rather than those little crack marks and all the rest around. It's a big job, and we've got a lot more to do of that, because they are the things that matter. If we're talking about council or things that matter, and we're here for the things that matter, that's one of them. Redoing footpaths, I think it was 8.3 kilometres of footpaths, and I'll be having a question later about that. And, you know, and half of our, and I think the other celebration is the amount of waste, where over 54% of our waste is taken away from landfill. So that was there's just some highlights, but indeed it is the fourth time, so I'm not going to talk anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Climate? Are there any questions? I'll put that, any speakers against, I should say? No. I'll put that motion. Those in favour, and carried unanimously again. Thank you. Item 13.2, council meeting schedule for 2019. Do I have a mover? Councillor Climate?
That the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. Councillor Climate? Councillor Zafiropoulos? No speakers against, I assume, and I'll put that motion. Those in favour, and that is carried unanimously. Item 13.3, record of assembly of councillors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Piccinini?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chen? Councillor Piccinini?
Nothing to add.
Councillor Chen?
Thank you.
I will put that motion on the assumption there's no discussion, and those in favour, and carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.4, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover? Councillor Haynes.
Well, I move that a recommendation be adopted with the addition of the following document. Consent to build over an easement agreement under section 173 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Council and HMH Hamad, 82 Greenridge Avenue, Templestowe.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Climate. I will put that motion. Those in favour, and carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 15, councillors' question time. Councillor Chen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and from 7 October, 17 additional peak services are added across Manningham to the dark bus services, including 2 additional morning and afternoon bus services on 905, 906, and 4 additional on 907, and 1 additional morning peak services on Route 309, the Doncaster to CBD. And this is a small win for Manningham from the collective advocacy work among council and the external committees such as Eastern Transport Coalition and the Metropolitan Transport Forum. And Manningham Council is a member of both committees. And my question is, will council continue, and how will council further enhance our advocacy works to improve public transport facilities across Manningham? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. I will refer that to our Chief Executive Officer, Andrew Day.
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, transport has been a big issue for the City of Manningham for many, many years, and we're certainly aware from an officer perspective that of councillors' desire to continue to develop your advocacy approach on a whole range of different matters right across the municipality, including transport. So officers have commenced some work on really starting to refine that advocacy strategy to make sure that we are clear on what those key advocacy items are of importance to council and the community, and make sure that we've got a strategic approach to ensuring that we're consistently coming back and delivering the messages to the community, but also obviously to the stakeholders and the people that we need to influence as a council, and you need to influence as a council to ensure that we do continue to achieve outcomes like this. And definitely transport and buses in particular will be a key part of that advocacy strategy when we bring that back in a more refined way to council in the new year.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Councillor Chen, for the questions. I've got Councillor McLeish and then Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm going to ask you for a report in a couple of minutes, and I'd like to preface that request for a report on advocacy with a few comments. You might be aware, Mr Mayor, that there's a collection of drop-in sessions running all around Melbourne at the moment on the North East Link. And if you go to one of those drop-in sessions, you're going to see lots of lovely plans. You're going to see plans for roads this way and lanes that way, and a dozen lanes on the Eastern Freeway, kilometres and kilometres of asphalt. And you're going to see tunnels being bored right through Manningham and massive freeway interchanges built. And you're going to see lots of pretty pictures and lots of enthusiasm for a new freeway. The problem is, Mr Mayor, that there's a few things that are missing from those grand plans. In fact, you go and look at the maps that they produce, one of the things you'll notice is where the tunnel entrance comes out, on the east side of the river, you'll notice that all of the parklands, the Bulleen parklands, it's not coloured green parkland. They've just left off the bit of green. All the other parklands on the other side of the river are marked out. But the bits on the Manningham side, they're not coloured green. It's a bit of a lie, I think, in their map, because they're trying to hide that they're putting a freeway right through the parklands of Manningham. And the problem I've got, Mr Mayor, is I don't see a plan for fixing the loss of sporting grounds. I don't see how our sporting clubs are going to get their grounds replaced. We have acres and acres of sporting grounds under threat from this, Mr Mayor, and they've helped us out. They've given us a busway. Great, we need that, and give them all due credit. The proposal for the busway is a first-class proposition. The engineering I really like, I think is a great proposition. But we're not seeing the same attention to detail when it comes to replacing the parklands that we're going to lose. We're not seeing anything that's going to replace. We've got space there that's future growth for sporting in Manningham, future growth for soccer, and we're going to lose it. Another council wants to replace their golf course on sporting grounds which we're responsible for, which is a future for our city. And we don't have a plan from the North East Link or from the state government to replace those parklands. Why not? Where is this government on this issue? Now, we're a polite council, Mr Mayor. We don't sort of get out on the hustings and wave placards in people's places. But I think it's time for us to actually raise the temperature on the advocacy on this issue, Mr Mayor. Let's go and have a look at Bulleen. There are 1,200 jobs in the commercial precinct in and around Bulleen. 1,200 jobs under threat. Where's the plan to rehouse those businesses? These are small businesses, hundreds of small businesses. Their superannuation, their livelihood is in these businesses, and their lives are on hold. They can't sell their business, they can't sell their site, they can do nothing with it. They're frozen in time. We're seeing great plans for a freeway, Mr Mayor. Where are the plans for those businesses? Where is the opportunity to replace that commercial land? Those businesses rely on local community trade. What's happening for those businesses? So, Mr Mayor, I think it's time for us to actually increase the volume of our voice on this issue, to get a new plan for advocacy on behalf of our community, and actually take the fight up to the government on this. Because it doesn't matter what flavour of government we get at the next election, this road's going to get built. So we are going to have to raise the temperature on this. We need a new advocacy strategy for this, and I ask if we can get a report to the SBS from the organisation to raise the temperature on this issue and advocate for our community. Now, I'm not speaking on my Pat Malone on this, Mr Mayor. I'm just stating things that all of my fellow councillors have been saying. I'm not a leader in this. This is what our councillors are saying, and I think we as a council, with your assistance and the assistance of the organisation, needs to raise the temperature on this issue and fight more loudly and more strongly for our community.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. I will ask our CEO, Andrew, to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Clearly, this is one of the largest road infrastructure projects that's going to impact on the City of Manningham over the next 5 to 7 years, and it is going to have significant impacts during the construction phase. And at this point in time, it's clear that there's going to be significant impacts on the amenity in our community and the businesses in our community post construction as well. And you're quite correct, Councillor, at this stage there has been discussions and talks about potential replacements and potential opportunities, but we've not had any guarantees on that front, and there's certainly been nothing firmly put in front of council or officers making commitments to ensure that the Manningham community is better off overall at the end of this project, insofar as a number of the areas that you articulated, particularly a number of those open space areas and indeed the industrial side of things. So we're more than happy to bring a report to SBS articulating what council may be able to do in this space to advocate more effectively and perhaps be a little less polite. We're more than happy to work with councillors on what some of those opportunities are to advocate to ensure that Manningham's community is better off overall at the end of this project.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Goff, you had a question?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I've got two questions. So my first question is this one. Is council aware of statements made in a... now, it's the Crime Prevention Manningham, which is part of a Manningham hub, and it's their Facebook group. And recently there's been comments going out about snake bites in Ruffy Lake Park and snakes in Ruffy Lake Park. There was a statement there that council released baby snakes into the park last year. Seems they are now adults. Now, I'm just wondering what we're doing to monitor that. Now, my first question, is it true?
Thank you, Councillor
The
Goff.
first one is, are you aware? Now, the second one is it true?
I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. We will take it on notice. We'll certainly come back to councillors in relation to both the matter of whether we were aware of that Facebook post, but also the release of baby snakes.
Yeah, well, that's what the claim is. And whether it's fake news or real news, I want to know whether it is or not. So,
well, without putting myself on the line too much, I can fairly confidently say we wouldn't be releasing snakes, but I'll certainly take that on notice and I'll ensure that that we haven't done that. Thank you, Councillor.
My second question.
Thank you, Councillor Goff.
Mr Mayor, are we aware of a report in the domain section of the paper over the weekend on the 20th of October actually had Melbourne's most and least walkable suburbs? And coming out on that graph, of course, you will find that there'll be some areas that are very walkable because of their topography, because it's not hilly and things like that, and because of the amenities and things that they have around and their infrastructure and places to go to. But reading through there, of great concern to me was areas such as, look, there are a number of areas of Manningham that weren't great. Doncaster was sort of in the middle. But areas of Lower Templestowe, which is still a built-up area, quite densely populated in many ways, had a rating, and this is a 0 to 10, okay? Now, that was a lowish one of 1.5. But worst of all was Templestowe, with a rating of 0.5. Of a walkable suburb. And we talk about all of these wonderful things. And it's with that, Mr Mayor, that I'm going to ask if we can just scope out for future budgets and for future developments in Manningham, what we can do about one of the things that we can improve. We can't change the topography. We can't necessarily put shopping centres and things into places or little cafes where, you know, all over the place. But what we can do is construct the footpaths. And I think if you look at Templestowe, you'll see a whole lot of ways, and I think it was the last meeting where we had a school that has a problem of open drains and no footpaths around it, no made footpaths around it. And I'm wondering if we can, as a council, scope out the costs of that, and indeed we can make it happen now, because we've changed our policy with not requiring the local people to put funds into it. It's 100% funded by Manningham ratepayers. So we've got that. And also in Templestowe, and if I look around Templestowe village, still open drains, no footpaths, people are having to walk on the road. So indeed we need to scope up the value of those works, and we need to get those, get to know what we're going to do about that, and to then, I suppose, find out a way to fund it. Because indeed, you know, becoming the place to be, as we, you know,
Best council in
and
Victoria.
these, Mr. Mayor, like our quote, are the things that matter. So these are the things that matter to our community, and we need to be looking at the things, as we say, the things that matter, and that infrastructure projects are very, very important to the citizens of quite built-up areas that don't have that amenity. So I'm wondering if we can do some work on furthering that.
I'll assume that we'll take that on notice for an SBS. Thank you, councillor Goff, for the question.
Now, I'm a little confused. I thought we'd added $1.5 million a year for the next 4 years to the footpath budget to do precisely what was just asked.
Yeah, well, it's not happening fast enough.
What, for domain.com?
No.
So, well, councillors, we'll just...
Mr. Mayor, I just highlighted, and I don't know that questions of questions, but I just highlighted the fact that Templestowe is in a very low area. We've got a situation, have we funded the road and footpath reconstruction outside Serpil Primary School? Has that been funded in our budget? No. So I'm just saying that we need to actually look at scoping those things in our budget. And then we need to turn onto the other areas of Templestowe where we have these open drains and no footpaths and no made roads. So that is the point of the article, and we all want to be green and everything else and walk to places and everything. I know we can't change our topography, but we can put in the infrastructure that the people want, and they are the things that matter to the people that live there.
Thank you, councillor Goff. I assume we will be considering that in the development of the budget, of the capital works budget in the next year as well as the following years. So thank you for your question again. Thank you. Councillor Garble, you have a question?
I do, but before I go to my question, on that article that you mentioned, councillor Goff.
You read it?
I did, I did. But did you check the criteria?
Yes, I did, and I said it's got nothing. I said
It's got nothing to do with.
Well,
Councillors, can we not have a debate about the someone else's article? We've got the intention.
Sorry, guys.
And thank
And
you,
I don't want- I
councillor
don't want to
Galbally. If you could just ask your question, that'd be great. It's fine.
Okay, moving on along. And the other one, I'm actually tagging behind Councillor McLeish's request or question about what Manningham Council are doing about the new works that we're expecting, and what are we as a council doing. And I, as an advocacy for what we want to happen and to protect our residents and into the future, I want to ask whether we could actually, as a council, have a forum on site for residents that are willing to be part of an advocacy project, and if that's a possibility, so we could actually have a louder voice, but not just, like, I understand that council and the officers would sort of be advocating on one side, but also to give a voice to residents and other groups that might be interested in getting involved, and to know exactly what's happening and just make a loud noise to get what we want.
Thank you. I'll ask the CEO to include that that idea in the report back to SBS on advocacy and the consequence
Thank you.
So is that. Are there any further questions, councillors? Well, we're almost going to close the meeting, but I would really like to take the opportunity to acknowledge Council's Executive Manager of People Governance, Jill Colson. So this is, for those who don't know, this is Jill sitting over here, quite embarrassed right now. After 5 years at Manningham, Jill recently announced her resignation and will be leaving Manningham to join Bayside City Council in the role of Director Corporate Services. Congratulations, Jill. So during Jill's time at Manningham, she has been an integral part of the leadership and executive team, taking a lead in strengthening the risk and audit, governance and human resources functions. And in particular, when you've acted a couple of times this year, even as acting CEO. So from my point of view, Jill, it's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you for particularly that filling in while Warwick was away and on the way out. so it's been great working with you. So on behalf of the council, I'd like to thank you for your commitment that you've brought to Manningham over the last 5 years, and we wish you all the best for this next exciting stage of your life. Thank you. We give her a clap. And with that, I will close the meeting. Thank you, everyone.